So technology. So this is a full stack. We have a commercial FTP server called Serviu, which is kind of nice if you ever need something that's not part of the operating system. Then this guy has every time we thought, well, can you will the log files provide this? Yes. Does it integrate with? Yes. So every time you wanted to ask, does it? Yes. So that was nice and not too expensive. For the ETL processes, we use Informatica PowerCenter 9.1. I'll get back to that. As the data warehouse or the databases and friends will is on SQL Server 2008 release 2 Enterprise Edition, and then all reporting will be on something called SharePoint, which I doesn't know anything about. The only thing I know is that after spending a month on speccing the data warehouse hardware and storage to be just Spitzen, then someone tried to put all the SharePoint databases on it as well. And then I went through the roof, and then it didn't. Anyway, there's probably some Excel on top of the OLAP cubes as well. So I'm just going to talk about 2 blue arrows here. So, and then this just is from that's kind of funny. I did this presentation on the Danish Oracle User Group Day. It's kind of, but that's a lot of data warehouse stuff in it, so I guess it's okay. But one of the other presenters just said, that's funny with SQL Server, it's the Squirrel server. Then there is actually also a hamster DB out there, so it's kind of, I don't know. Maybe it's just some of the the pictures stuff with the right. Anyway, so why did I put on in a SIS package here? This is just because I don't know if any of you are familiar with anything something different than SIS to do ETL. Informatica PowerCenter. Have you tried any other ETL tools? No. So why would you pick a specific ETL tool or product? In many reasons. Some of the reasons would be that you get all this lineage for free. You get all this lineage that Project Barcelona will give you. But there's also something that's really nice. If you have ever tried to look on the XML for a SIS package, that's the simplest possible SIS package in the world. Just one data flow, one source, one destination, same structure, and just one-to-one mapping. How many lines of XML do you think will be in this? This package is just a piece of XML. Any guess? 100? More. 200? 300? 500? 800 for just this. And that's because for the SIS package, it stores not only the structure, but also some of the information on where things are put on the screens and all the presentation in the GUI. Kind of sucks when you think about it that you mess everything into the same structure. Here is the same example just in the GUI in the development tool in PowerCenter Designer. So this is the same table. We got a source, and we get auto-generated what's called a source qualifier. This is a logical model on the physical. And then this is the target and the same. Now the XML for this is approximately 80 lines of XML. And there will only be the information on the structure and the mappings here. Okay. So why would this be relevant? Why would you pick an ETL tool that will cost you, I don't know, 3-4 times the license costs of your data warehouse, of your database license. Because it does that, it's just, I shouldn't do that on live TV, but it's ridiculously expensive, in my opinion. So, but if you want to do, if you want to auto-generate everything, this could actually pay for the full investment, that you are able to auto-generate all your transformations from a metadata model. And you can do that with this enterprise tool. Let me just see one more thing about this.
A question.
Yeah.
Auto-generate. You talk about generating XML.
Yeah.
That's the level you've been doing. Okay. Was there actually other ways to do that?
Yeah.
So actually, I have been doing auto-generation of SSIS packages. And there are some clever ways to do it that saves a lot of work.
Okay. That we bought your the book with your deep dive thing because we talked about it on SQL Rally. Yeah. Yeah.
You can also do SSIS auto-generation. Absolutely.
But that was, I think, for us was a side effect. There were other reasons why we couldn't really write our offer without using this tool, because there were special requirements that said Informatica within them. So we need to use it, but the
it's just in this context here, we are very interested in why would anyone choose another tool than Microsoft BI tool. So that is why this is an important question here. So is it auto-generation, any other reason?
Lineage. Process lineage
yes,
is definitely.
Which actually comes, you get it automatically if you auto-generate, because then you need to know what you're auto-generating.
Oh, but the process lineage here will also be on the SSRS reports and your cubes and to your files. But you can probably also auto-generate that. But then if you as the vendor say, I want to build this project and I will also build the tools myself, some customers would like you to use tools that are built for that and use them. There was in the platform is also data profiling tools within the license, at least simple ones.
So any other reasons to choose Informatica? Yeah, I'm just very interested.
If I could choose differently, if you're going clean Microsoft stack, you probably wouldn't. It has this is a Rolls Royce of ETL tools. That's expensive, but it also comes with connectors to everything you can dream of. Also things that you can probably not plug in SIS data connectors. Then the architecture of the ETL services scale probably better if you're going to do you have the possibility to scale your ETL processes and also within multiple machines controlled from the same workflow. That could probably also, I mean, we are talking about enterprise in the enterprise segment here. So we used it because we had requirements we probably couldn't do without using this tool.
Performance issues. Performance issues. Is there any
So all the nice performance guides you have on from the SQL Cat team, you don't really have, because you don't have the full stack. Like if you're using SIS, you can use the bulk loading APIs. We can't use them here because we don't have this way of cheating between the operating system and the database engine.
So let me see what your question was. differences between SSIS and this tool? Is there any?
Yeah, then there's some nice things where you in all your mappings you hide the physical representation within a logical one, which means that the metadata you don't really need this on your mappings. You just use this one, so you can all this really annoying things in SIS when they need to revalidate metadata. You don't have these issues here, and not in the way where things break. At least they break here with that you probably just need to adjust this source qualifier, and then you're done. Now this, okay. But because of the licensing costs are high, and you want when you are competing on price on a project, you want to give the lowest reasonable price, and probably when you are in the project, if you're a nice guy like me, you want to save the customer some licensing cost. At least you want to try to put the infrastructure together to be able to save money for your customer. Now the way we try to do this, I spend a lot of time figuring out the hardware configuration for this for the best possible cost. And because it was kind of 1-to-4, even though we're talking enterprise edition licenses, this guy was probably always 4 times more expensive per core. Then we tried to build the system where the Informatica PowerCenter machine only ran on 2 cores, and then the data warehouse SQL server is running 24 cores, I think, at least hyper-threaded, and it's 24 cores. And then these are directly connected with fiber with, I think, 100 gigabit. It's just to make sure that you try to eliminate the bottlenecks so that this one will be maxed out on CPU, because it's CPU, it's expensive for it, and then probably over-dimensioning this guy, because it will, I think it is 264 gigabytes of memory for this guy, directly attached storage that's fast track, like the fast track configuration for this guy. So make sure that whenever whatever happens, this one can take it all. It give you all the I/O this guy needs, and it will be only CPU time. That's the bottleneck in this. That was the way we try to dimension the hardware for the system. Then I talked to Thomas Kaiser after SQL Rally Nordic, and talking about trying to limit, trying to configure the hardware for the lowest possible licensing costs. And because we have different this guy is 2 CPU, because we will have different way of licensing SQL Server 2012. We'll probably be seeing more of this way of dimensioning your hardware to try to cheat. In Oracle circles, Miracle has been doing this for like 10 years, trying to save customers' licensing costs on suggesting different hardware, and we'll probably be seeing this within this community as well.
Just to follow up here, would anyone here be interested in a session about ETL tools? What would you say about that? Yes, because that's something I could try to organize. We have actually Henk van der Valk, who was together with Thomas Kaiser, they broke the world record on ETL. Henk van der Valk is coming to Stockholm in January. He's going to present parallel data warehouse that time, but we could try to bring him here to Malmö to talk about ETL processing or something. that's interesting.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I'll come. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so now we are at the heart of our talk, and when I first wrote the slides, I thought it would be really cool to have this dictionary definition of partitioning, partition, and then that's the really cool thing about the internet, that you are able to choose between different definitions in the different dictionaries. And this, from the freedictionary.com, partitioning, I found this, for me, really inspiring definition of partition. So the first one was called the act of process of dividing something into parts. It's kind of the way we, the machine way of, like the factory metaphor for partitioning. And then this very poetic, that's kind of all in the hippie department, the state of being so divided is kind of poetry. You can almost feel like it's the energy flowing and the flowers and so anyway, so this, and then I watched some of Kimberly Tripp's MCM videos, and if you want some really cool technical videos on SQL Server up to 2008. MCM is the master, Microsoft certified master, but SQL skills, I think there are around 30 of them. And in her video on partitioning, she also mentioned this, that you can think of partitioning and just as something different than just table partitioning. Then I thought, well, now I have this hunch of state of being so divided, and Kimberly says this, so that's then I thought, well, maybe we should try to think of partitioning as a design pattern, and this is the rest of the talk will go into something physical or dividing something into the machine part, and then the more hippie style, the way I feel, stuff like that. So think about partitioning as a pair of glasses that I applied, and when I looked on this 4X project, that's what I saw in these two different departments: machine, poetry. Okay. So partitioning something into parts, files. So even though the spec mentioned something else, reality was, remember we're talking, if you think 1 hour back, of course you remember the slides, 52 minutes that's ago, saying 30 different IT systems, right? 30 different IT systems, probably also 30 different vendors, and 30 different combinations of how you would think of presenting a file to me. XML, CSV, Excel, fixed format. You can throw in also different character sets from mainframes. You can throw in complexities like one file has one or more tables, and one file could give you data from one or more municipality. And throw in also 30 different file naming schemes, and then you have complexity. Just as and that's not what you want. You don't want complexity starting. I need to plug in. You don't want your complexity to start at the one-to-one mappings into your staging area, because as you also saw that the complexity probably starts. Oh, sorry. Complexity. You don't want complexity starting with your one-to-one mappings. So the dream, I mean, the OCD cat is disturbed by the loose thread. I don't know, but it would be really nice if you could just have CSV files, just one file with one table, and one file with data from one organization, one municipality. And also just one file naming scheme. It would be just really nice. And so therefore dividing something into parts, what we did, instead of having lots of complexity on files, It gives lots of complexity, even though we auto-generate these guys. It's still complex file to DSA mappings. Why would you want that? It's just one-to-one until you reach your staging area. So what we did was just build a component here. It's called a preprocessor. It's just something that encapsulates the complexity of all these different files and makes the things on this side nice and easy. So it means that the code generation, at least the code generation for these, will be very, very simple, and we can deal with the logic, and we can deal with every time a vendor, if a vendor changes something, at least we have it, all the logic, all the complexity put into this. And this is just a C# program. So we don't really need, or we can with a C# program, we can deal with all this weird stuff easily. The same way you would do it if you made a script task in your SIS. But just you don't, all your mappings will be nice and easy here. Dividing something into parts for data on the data, if you look at databases, what we did was to put in one database layer into one physical database. So there's a staging database, there's an EDV database, there's a database for data marts, there's a database for lineage, there's a metadatabase also for master data management lookups. So it's kind of just a life insurance to be able to scale out. That eventually, if the size of this one was growing, or if the mappings from here to here suddenly took up all the resources that we couldn't do this, we would be able just to scale out, sending the DSA layer to a different physical database. So the I/O pattern for one type of data flow wouldn't kill all these. We could just do that, and we can do that. Actually, this is you would have the same thing with SIS. You only need to change the configuration strings for the ETL tool, and you're pretty much up and running. And I guess that's divided the partitioning on the database when you look at on the database level. And this is probably what most people would think of partitioning with table partitioning. Table partitioning is an enterprise feature that came into the product in 2005, Enterprise Edition. And it's anyone using partitioning on your data warehouses or databases? Anyone running Enterprise Edition? Yeah. Okay. If you paid for it and you're running and you're running data warehouse kind of loads, then it's a really nice feature for two reasons. And so there's this what's called partition pruning. This is where so a partition is basically, at least in SQL Server, if you have table T, it comes with a partition as well underneath. So if you have, but you can in your DDL for your tables, you can say I want this to partitions on this partitioning scheme, and what it means is that you put a logical layer on top, saying that you have on a logical level, you divide your table into different parts. You can say that, and when you do that, and if you have, so you partition on one of your attributes or on one of your columns, and if you do say filtering, if you filter on a partitioned column, the optimizer, the cost-based optimizer, can look into the metadata of this and say, well, I know I want to give you a full table scan because, of course, you do heap tables here and you don't have any options. But I know also that you have a where clause where you say you only want this month of data. So even though I give you a full table scan, I won't bother do a table scan of these. I'll just do a full table scan of the table, but only on this. That's you're pruning away partitions. And this is really nice if you think of it, because if you do, it means that you can divide in this case, this is a data warehouse that's fairly the same data warehouse repeated 98 times, right? So if we do a smart way of partitioning our tables, we can divide the data warehouse and the load patterns into chunks of 100th of the size. That's nice. And if you haven't tried it, you should go home and make a partition table on on an integer data type, and then put in the execution plan, set statistics, I/O, and time on, and then try to do full table scans on a table like this, with and without partitioning, and then just to have a look into the execution plan and also with the statistics on the I/O patterns, just to see the difference. It's a half-hour exercise, but it's really helpful. That's one thing, but wait, there's more. You can also do what's called partition switching, or partition. It's many names. Partition switching, I guess. This is a way where you can do an insert with an update, or you can do an insert with a delete. What happens is that you can say you have lots of people reading from this table. Maybe full table scans, I don't know. And say you want to add in another month of data here. What you can do with partition switching is you can take a copy of, you can do it many ways, but let's just say keep it simple. You can make a copy of let's just make it the way we want to do it. Make an empty copy of the table with the same number of partitions, maybe one more. It could be that this one is empty right now. Then, because no one is really, it's just a copy. I can do my ETL here. I can load this partition. It could take me a week. It could take me a few hours. It doesn't really matter. The only thing I need when I'm done here is I can switch this out and switch this in. And this is just metadata operations in the data dictionary. So the switch here will take microseconds, which means that as soon as at least if you can get a lock on the metadata for the table, you can switch in and you can update the table like this. That's pretty cool, and it's not really that complicated if you have a look at I think Kimberly Tripp's also made the white paper on this. And there's more to this than just the logical part. You can assign partitions to file groups and different kind of storage, which means that you can have the warm part of your data warehouse on fast storage, and you can have the cold part on slow storage like this. You can have information lifecycle management using this. That's pretty cool. This is what we do. We partition the staging area by municipality, and then also by month and year, and the enterprise data warehouse only by municipality, because here in the historical things we have two natural ways of partitioning. Here we only have one that's dividing something into 1/100th of the size. Okay, but you can't do that in a SQL Server. Now if anyone has good connections within the development group, please give me this. Like we've been doing this in Oracle for 20 years, I don't know. At least 12, 13 years, being able to partition by a multiple key. You can do it also in SQL Server, but you need to cheat. You need to have a different table on the side with a multiple key, and then you would, for each table, you would have this cheating table. But you can do it, and the optimizer can still do partition pruning, even though you do it on multiple columns. But it just sucks that you can't do it just like that, because it just does. So partitioning in SQL Server, up until now, you can only do it on one key. Sorry. Okay. Partitioning, if you look at CPUs, we use affinity masking. So we tried. You can do that. You can delegate the load pattern for I/O to a number of dedicated CPUs for I/O, and then use the rest for SQL Server. Now, why would you want to do that? This is something that Thomas Kaiser normally talks about, and he'll probably tease me if I'm getting it all wrong. But think about if you have a CPU core here, then you have your memory here, then you have different kinds of very fast memory that you can put instructions into the CPU. You can cache them in something very fast and not so fast, and then memory. And if you have something that's pushing your server here pretty hard, then it could be that you are loading instructions here for I/O, and the next time someone visits this CPU, he wants to load instructions for something with the buffer cache. So it's taking out these instructions from the memory that's closest to the CPU core. So it's context switching between different ways of working. If you do affinity masking, then you can say, dear CPU 0 and 12, you should only do I/O operations. Then I'll put my load on the other guys. And Thomas told me at Miracle Open World this year that the way where this tricks might help you. This is the CPU part of the task manager. Now you want, on a nice ETL load, you want 100% CPUs going like this, 100% for all of them. That's nice. Now, if you see something like almost 100% but going like this jitter, then it could be that you're seeing this, and then you can just allocate a core or two to only to do I/O, and then get the nice even 100%. Now we probably, and I just did this because I saw patterns like this and some of the weight statistics that are connected to it, and then I thought, well, why not? Let's try it. Okay, so that's the technical part of the talk, and I see I have 15 minutes left. Hope you're still awake. So the last is just the flowers, the hippies, the trees, and the snow. So the first hippie state of being so divided is the thing I talked about, auto generation. So this is I don't know if maybe maybe the picture doesn't really hold out here, but it's kind of seeing all the ETL you're building, and then the vendors screw up with giving you something else, and you need to change a lot of things. So this is where auto-generating things from metadata really helps you, because you can change the full setup, I mean, all the way up to a month before release, because it doesn't really matter as long as you can do another model and then auto-generate your code, and then plug it in. It doesn't really matter. If you want to make sure that you, if you want to do, if file definition change, if someone wants to do a little change in the modeling in your enterprise data warehouse, it doesn't really matter. You can just do it. It's just a meta model, and you push it. Both the DDL is auto-generated, and all the mapping code is. So it's kind of doesn't really matter. We're dividing ETL and physical data models from the way the customer or the data stewards or the vendors come with things. Here's an example of the data model that can and this is actually an old one, but we can see something that we have a flow, and a flow can have some transformations. Transformations can have mappings between columns, between tables, between data warehouse layers, and they can do something as well. We can have a transformation type. What is this kind of transformation? So this is a way of data model that can hold what you can think of in a SIS package, in a data flow. Okay.
Is that homegrown?
This is homegrown. Yeah. So this is the tool we built for the project, but it's so the idea of this comes from the product I'm product owner of in Rehfeldt in the other department. We also do this in our BI platform, that we have all the information model, the star schemas, everything is modeled in metadata, and we just auto-generate to the physical models and ETL flows. And it's the only way you will survive in a big project, because changes will just kill you. Integration testing will kill you here if you don't do it. Even though we spent a few months building the tool to build the project, it's still its money's worth. Think about if you want to implement type 2 history on something, and then you maybe want to do it at many places, and you just need to make one mistake somewhere, and it's the testing. Just being able to test for the correct implementation of type 2 history is just, why would you want to do that? It's just infrastructure. So if you auto-generate it, you can just test your infrastructure, and then you can be happy, or you can be sad in other places. This is she's reading Code Fusion. I think it's the worst picture I could have of a developer. And then this is the evil DBA. So the state of being so divided, with the developers fighting the evil DBAs. This is also where code generation, auto-generating DDL scripts can help us, because we script the DDL from metadata. We don't really have to bother people about the details about partitioning, because partitioning is just, at least if you want on the pruning part, it's just something that you don't really want to bother people about. You want them to take care of the DDL for the tables, and doesn't really need, you want to hide the details on how you partition a table. So state of being so divided, if you do this separation with auto-generation, then you can hide partitioning in DDL, and you can also change the partitioning schemes. Of course, you could do that anyway as a DBA, but it's also been nice that 5 months into the project, we turned on compression table on the tables, and that was just a feature of the auto-generator. It's not something that anyone needed to do anything about. And state of being so divided, when you think about backups, DBAs versus the backup administrator, because we are partitioning, we know as DBAs, or as the one who know the data warehouse, that there's some part of the data that's hot and some parts of the data that's cold. meaning that it's not really updated anymore. Think about if you have in an ERP system, every time you have a record of something, you don't change that. If you make a mistake, you make another record that corrects it. Okay. So when you load in ERP data, it will be cold next month. You will never change it. So what you can do, if you know this, you can partition your data like this, and then you can make file groups read-only on partitions that contain code data. It means you don't need to back up it one time. If you have a backup of a read-only file group, then you don't need to back it up. And this can decrease your backup window, especially if you have, for us, we would have a 10 to 15 terabyte of data in the data warehouse. Now we are lucky we have a load window that goes through the month. We get monthly data, and we have a luxury load situation. But still, you don't really need to run backups on things that you have backed up before. So knowing, instead of being so divided, or if you have a DBA and you know about hot and cold parts of your data, you can cheat. You can say, I can do a backup in 20 minutes on a 20 terabyte data warehouse, because it's only this part that's new. And restoring, same thing. Oh, there's actually a group called default. So this was something I learned reading everything I could about VLDB on SQL Server. I think it was Omar who had it on one of his blogs. That in order to restore a database, you only need to restore the primary file groups to get up and running. So if you make small enough primary file groups without data, and then the default file group for the real data, and you have a recovery situation, you can get the database up and running by restoring the primary file group, and then everyone is happy. They're happy if they don't need to touch the data. And then you can just restore the different file groups on the default file group later, which is nice. If you think of the possibility, of course, again, it's probably not necessary for us, but if you want to restore a 50 terabyte data warehouse, then it could be nice that you could just restore these. It could also be that you could have the backups of these on local disk, and then you could have the real backup somewhere else. So that's, again, I don't know if the DBA on versus, that I know why there's a guy here. If you think of the primary file group, this should be 100 megabytes should be enough for metadata for a database, right? There shouldn't be anything in there. I just realized that 100 megabytes was not enough. So I needed at least 170 megabytes for some of our databases. So yeah.
This feature is only available in the enterprise edition.
We have enterprise edition, yeah.
So the partial restores.
Yeah. But then partitioning is also an enterprise feature. Backup compression, we also use that. That's enterprise. I think the last bit, I have 4 minutes left. That's the data warehouse versus the OLTP part and versus the OLAP part. Now this is where SharePoint hit me. And I learned in school that you don't want to mix long transactions, full table scans, and OLTP behavior. So I was just a bit, I don't know, in a grumpy mood when I realized that the nice big data warehouse server was going to also do the SAS querying and also the SharePoint databases. And then But then I realized that there was actually a SQL Server license and also some iron for a reporting server. And this made us make this decision about dedicating the data warehouse server to ETL and data warehousing. And then also processing the OLAP databases and cubes on this guy. And then let this guy handle the OLTP databases for SharePoint. And the way we publish data to the customer is just by taking these and restoring them here. So it can be really fast. The window of not being able to report for the customers here is just the time it takes to restore an OLAP database. So it's a way of also trying to divide the loads on different architectures. Yeah, then we use page compression on, I think, all over the place. Page compression is a nice way of converting your CPU clock cycles to better I/O. So it's a way of, if you have I/O problems, you can do page compression, and then you can have more data in your data pages on disk. But then you pay a penalty on, for instance, if you have the where clause will be, you don't necessarily unpack the things in your page when it hits the buffer cache, but you will still, at least you won't until you need the data. If you have where clauses on, then SQL Server will do page compression on the clause and then compare that. But still, and then backup compression. Even though you have page compression, that's confined to compressing within your 8K of page. So you can still do a lot more compression if you compress all these compressed pages using backup compression. And this is just some early results on saying that this is some data from another system, but we had factors of this just shows that I/O time and CPU time were not proportional, inverse proportional, but kind of still. And that's basically the end of the talk.